Hello everyone, welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy's weekly current affairs. So today is Sunday, 14th December 2025, and today we are going to discuss this week's important current affairs topics. So the first topic is United Nations Environment Program's Champions of Earth Award. So let's understand who gets this Champions of Earth Award this year and what is the objective with which this award has been established and why IAS Supriya Sahu has got this Champions of Earth Award this year. So this is very interesting. So let's understand about this Champions of Earth Award, but before that let's understand the context. As I have already told you that this is United Nations Environment Program's Champions of Earth Award. And this award is given to those people who have done exceptional work in the field of environment. Now, in fact, IAS Officer Supriya Sahu has been recognized with this award for her exceptional and transformative environmental leadership. So therefore, it is a recognition for her. So we'll be understanding as well what exceptional and transformative work she has done, and because of that reason she has got recognized with the United Nations Environment Program's Champions of Earth Award. Now in fact, this is given in the inspiration and action category because now she has put in exceptional work, right? So therefore she has got this award in United Nations Environment Program ceremony, Kenya, Nairobi. So therefore it is a global acknowledgement, a global recognition for work across the conservation, climate resilience and sustainable cooling. Now let's understand about this Champions of Earth Award in detail. Now this award was established in the year 2005. And in fact, this award is given by whom? United Nations Environment Program. Now, in fact, also understand that this United Nations Environment Program recognizes those individuals who have put in exceptional work in the field of environment with this. So therefore, this is the highest environmental honor for any individual. So therefore, those individuals who are at the forefront of protecting environment, biodiversity, ecology, who could actually set good examples for the rest of the people to follow, to practice. So those people will be recognized with these awards. Now in fact, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also got this Champions of Earth Award. So in fact, every year United Nations Environment Program recognizes individuals and their exceptional work in the environmental field through this Champions of Earth Award. Right? So therefore it not just recognizes individuals but also the organizations which are working in the field of environmental conservation, environmental protection, biodiversity conservation. So those who could actually find sustainable solutions to the existing environmental problems. So everybody will be identified and they will be recognized through the Champions of Earth Award. Also understand this Champions of Earth Award is given in 4 different fields. So you have to understand this. IAS Officer Supriya Sahu has got this year's United Nations Environment Program's Award for her exceptional contribution for the protection of environment. So let's discuss another very important topic, which is Chhattisgarh gets its first Ramsar site. So that means as of now, Chhattisgarh don't have any Ramsar sites. For the first time, Chhattisgarh has got its first Ramsar site, and which is Kopra Reservoir. So this Kopra Reservoir has become the 96th Ramsar site in India. So how many Ramsar sites we have so far? 96 Ramsar sites we have. Now, the state which is having the largest number of the Ramsar sites is Tamil Nadu. So understand that Chhattisgarh has marked a significant environmental milestone because of declaration of this Kopra Reservoir in Bilaspur district as the state's first Ramsar site. So as of now, Chhattisgarh don't have any Ramsar sites. So we'll also understand what exactly is these Ramsar sites. Ramsar sites are basically wetlands. Wetlands which are recognized under Ramsar Convention. So those wetlands which have been facing exceptional threat in terms of conservation, in terms of protection, and those wetlands are also degrading at a faster pace. And those wetlands require protection at the local level, national level, international level. All those wetlands would be recognized under the Ramsar site, and a legal framework has been provided under this international framework and the national framework to protect those wetlands which have been facing these threats. So therefore, this recognition of the Copra Reservoir as a wetland placed this wetland on the global list of wetlands of international importance. And in fact, it has also identifies a state's growing role in biodiversity conservation and even sustainable management of the water resources, protection of the livelihoods of the local communities, balancing economic development at the local level with the environmental conservation and biodiversity protection. Right. So let's discuss about Copra Reservoir and its significance and why it has been recognized as a wetland under the Ramsar Convention. Now understand that this designation for the Copra Reservoir as a wetland was officially announced on December 12, 2025. However, this is the result of a coordinated effort from multiple stakeholders, and one very important agency in this respect is State Wetland Authority. And apart from State Wetland Authority, there are other stakeholders also who have put in exceptional efforts to make sure that this Copra Reservoir's biodiversity environment is protected if it is placed under the wetland of the list of international wetlands under the Ramsar Convention. However, now one thing that we should understand about this Copra Reservoir is that it is having a unique wetland system. So this unique wetland system is shaped by both natural and human-made factors. So that is the unique nature of this Copra Reservoir. However, if we talk about this Copra Reservoir, it is primarily a rain-fed reservoir. And in fact, this reservoir is also supported by some small streams which merge into this reservoir. So therefore, it is a very important and a critical source of fresh water in the region. It supports the livelihoods of the local communities in the region. It supports rich biodiversity, and it also promotes ecology, and it also provides drinking water for irrigation, drinking water and water for irrigation as well. However, let's understand some newly added Ramsar sites in India as wetlands of international importance. For example, in 2025 in Tamil Nadu, a wetland called Sakkarkottai and Tirthangal Bird Sanctuary were added to the list of important wetlands. And apart from that, the Uddhava Lake has also been added. This Uddhava Lake is from Jharkhand. And then Gokul, Chelshai, Udaipur Jheel, Gogabil Lake. So those wetlands are also added to the Ramsar sites in India, and all these three wetlands are from Bihar. And then the Kacharpoli wetland in Sikkim. So this has also been added to the list of wetlands. And apart from that, the Kitchen and Minar, both from Rajasthan, were also added to the list of important wetland sites. Now briefly, we'll try and understand what is this Ramsar Convention. And India is also a party to the Ramsar Convention. Previously, there were questions in prelims examination about this Ramsar Convention. Now, one thing that we should understand is Ramsar Convention is a convention on wetlands of international importance. Now, in fact, this is an intergovernmental treaty where all other countries are joined this convention as parties. So this convention was adopted in 1971 in Iran. So Ramsar is a place in Iran. So because of this reason, this convention is called as Ramsar Convention. However, even though the Ramsar Convention was adopted in 1971, it came into effect in 1975. So therefore, those wetlands which are of international importance, which have been facing exceptional threat, and there is a need for extending larger protection to those wetlands, and these are recognized as Ramsar sites. And in fact, the largest Ramsar site in the world is Pantanal, which is in South America. So Pantanal is in South America, which is considered as the largest Ramsar site. Now, one thing that we should understand, because of urbanization, industrialization, excessive usage of chemicals and fertilizers in agriculture, what has been happening, these wetlands are degrading. Now, if you look at the wetlands, they support a wide variety of biodiversity. They provide drinking water, they provide water for irrigation. If these wetlands are encroached by the people, these wetlands are contaminated by the people, there might be loss of important biodiversity, loss of the ecological balance, and they may not be able to provide drinking water, water for irrigation. So therefore, the livelihoods of hundreds of thousands of people also depends on wetlands. So therefore, the Ramsar Convention has rightly recognized this importance of Ramsar sites, and adequately the protection has been also extended. However, within Ramsar Convention, there is also a Montreux record. And if we talk about this Montreux record, it has been adopted in Montreux, Switzerland, 1990. And in fact, the Montreux record identifies certain Ramsar sites that need a priority conservation. Now, in fact, in India, there are two wetlands in the Montreux record. So one is Loktak Lake in Manipur, and another one is in Rajasthan, Keoladio. So these two are in the Montreux record. They actually require the urgent and priority based conservation because of the threat of degradation that they have been facing. However, let's understand some basic details about the wetlands. Now, in fact, wetland is a place in which the land is covered by water. Now, in fact, this water could be salt water, fresh water, or brackish water. So brackish water is the mix of fresh water and salt water. Now, in fact, in India, Chilka Lake is a brackish water lake. Now, in fact, they take many forms including rivers, marshes, bogs, mangroves, mudflats, ponds, swamps, billabongs, lagoons, lakes, and floodplains. So all these different forms of water bodies may be considered as wetlands. And in fact, World Wetland Day is celebrated on 2nd February. However, as of now, India is having more than 96 wetlands. Now, in fact, the Wetland Convention came into force in India in the year 1982. So therefore, there are several wetlands. For example, Chilka Lake, which is located in Odisha, which is a Ramsar lake. Kailadiyo National Park is also a Ramsar lake in Rajasthan, Harike Lake in Punjab, Loktak Lake in Manipur, and Wular Lake in Jammu and Kashmir. So these are important lakes which are part of the Ramsar Convention. However, the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change has also established a related framework for the conservation and protection of wetlands in India. Now, in fact, the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change has notified the Wetland Conservation Management Rules 2017. And these rules are notified under the Environment Protection Act of 1986 as a regulatory framework for the conservation and management of wetlands. In 2017, rules further decentralize the wetland management and provide for the constitution of the State Wetlands Authority or Urban Territory Wetland Authority. In urban areas also there are wetlands, and it is important to extend protection to those urban wetlands as well. Right. Urban wetlands are also considered as the sponges or urban sponges. Now let's understand another very important current affairs topic. It's about Union Cabinet has approved a bill to increase foreign direct investment limit to 100% in India's insurance sector. So therefore 100% FDI, this is not true, right? So this is heading, so 100% FDI in the insurance sector. As of now, 100% FDI is not allowed in the insurance sector. But Union Cabinet has approved that there will be 100% FDI in the insurance sector, and a bill will be introduced in the parliament. If this bill is passed in the parliament, then 100% FDI will be allowed in the insurance sector, and this will be a major step. Let's understand some basic details about this. So recently, as I have already told you, that Union Cabinet has approved the bill to raise FDI in the insurance sector to 100%. And in fact, this has been lauded as a major reform for expanding insurance penetration and attracting the global capital. And in fact, if 100% FDI is allowed in the insurance sector, there is a probability that a large-scale FDI will come into the insurance sector, and it will increase the insurance penetration, it will bring in innovation, and it will also increase the outreach of insurance sector to every individual. And in fact, this move also follows a recent announcement by the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman in the Union Budget, and this also marks a significant shift from existing 74% cap on foreign ownership. So that means as of now, only 74% of the foreign direct investment is allowed in the insurance sector, but the Union Cabinet is approved a bill that will be introduced in the parliament, and the bill will allow 100% FDI into the insurance sector. Let's understand the implications of this move. Now, in fact, the Insurance Laws Amendment Bill of 2025. So this is the bill that is going to be introduced in the parliament, and this bill, if it is passed by the parliament, it may allow 100% FDI in the insurance sector because it has already received the cabinet clearance. And in fact, as of now, the winter session has been going on, and this Insurance Laws Amendment Bill 2025 may be introduced in this winter session of the parliament. And in fact, the winter session of the parliament concludes on 19 December this month. So however, one thing that we should understand, that the bill is among 13 key legislations which are actually listed for this session, and it is designed to accelerate growth and development of the insurance sector, at the same time improving ease of doing business by further liberalizing the insurance sector, allowing FDI into the insurance sector. So therefore, it will improve the ease of doing business, bringing in more investments into the insurance sector. Let's understand some key provisions of Insurance Laws Amendment Bill of 2025. This will amend the Insurance Act of 1938, along with the consequential changes to the Life Insurance Corporation Act of 1956. And it will also make changes into the Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority Act of 1990. However, as we have understood that this bill is going to be introduced in the parliament, and this bill is going to introduce the FDI limit from 74% to 100%. So apart from increasing the insurance sector FDI limit to 100%, this bill also allows the merger of non-insurance companies with insurance companies. So therefore, it actually provides for the creation of a dedicated policyholder fund as well. Now, in fact, the guardrails include requirement that at least one key managerial position such as chairman, managing director, CEO be held by an Indian citizen. Yes, it is true that 100% FDI is allowed into the insurance sector, but either CEO, director or chairman, so they should be an Indian. So what is the rationale behind this foreign investment? Why the government is allowing 100% FDI into the insurance sector? Now, one thing that we should understand that there is a need to increase insurance penetration in India. So apart from that, if you look at the statistics, India is the 10th largest insurance sector globally. There is a need to further enhance competition within market, so that we should also bring the globally best practices, and we can achieve all these objectives if we bring in large scale foreign direct investment into the private sector. So we need to understand some important data with respect to insurance sector, because this insurance sector has already attracted 82,000 crore in foreign direct investment. Higher foreign ownership is expected to infuse long-term working capital for these insurance companies, and they would start innovating on their products, and it would further strengthen their management, increase competition, strengthen employment generation across the insurance value chain. So these are the objectives and the rationale behind higher foreign investment in the insurance sector. If you look at some important statistics with respect to insurance sector in India, as I have already reiterated, that India is the 10th largest insurance sector globally. And in fact, 4.2% insurance penetration in India in 2021, the global average is 7%. $91 insurance density in India in the year 2021, the global average is $874. So insurance density in India much low at par with the global average. 76% share of life insurance segment and 6th largest insurance market by 2030. However, if you look at the terms like insurance penetration and insurance density, insurance penetration stands for the percentage of insurance premium to the GDP, which is considered as insurance penetration. However, insurance density is the ratio of premium to population, per capita premium. So this is the definition of insurance penetration and insurance density. The next important topic, that Union Cabinet has cleared Shanti Bill. Let's understand what exactly is this Shanti Bill. Now, in fact, the recent Union Cabinet meeting, several important decisions have been taken. So let's understand all these important decisions taken by the Union Cabinet, then we will discuss the Shanti Bill. The Shanti Bill is a nuclear sector which will be opened to the private sector, and it is a push given by the government to get to 100 gigawatt by 2047, and it is an ambitious goal that we have set for ourselves. So in order to achieve this goal of 100 gigawatt by 2047, we must open this sector for the private sector. So they bring in better management, better technology, better competition, and the capital required. And then we'll also understand the other decision that has been taken in this cabinet meeting is Sabka Bima Sabki Raksha, which is 100% FDI in insurance composite licenses. And then Vikasit Bharat Shiksha Adikshan Bill, which is a new education regulator that will be brought in by the government. And in fact, the Securities Code, and this will merge with SCRA SEBI Act Depositories Act. Right. And then Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act will be renamed as Pujya Bapu Gramin Rojgar Guarantee Bill. And then there will be a bill to repeal 71 old, outdated and archaic laws in India. And then India is going to have a free trade agreement with Oman. Therefore, the cabinet has also approved this free trade agreement with Oman. And then a coastal setu, which is a coal setu, which is a coal linkage auctions. Coal exports are allowed under this. And apart from that, Cabinet has also approved Census 2027 with 11,700 crore outlay, fully digital caste disclosure option. And the minimum support prices for copra has increased by 445 to 12,027. per quintal 2026 season. So these are important decisions which are taken by Union Cabinet. Let's understand this Shanti Bill. What exactly is this Shanti Bill? Union Cabinet has approved the sustainable harnessing of advancement of nuclear energy for transforming India, which in short is considered as Shanti. So this Shanti Bill will be introduced in the Parliament, and this bill will mark a major policy shift. This will open India's tightly regulated nuclear power sector to the private participation. So that means, as of now, the nuclear energy sector is tightly regulated and controlled by the state, and it will be opened to the private sector as well, to bring competitiveness and also achieve the target of achieving 100 gigawatt nuclear power by the year 2047. So therefore, let's understand about this Shanti Bill in detail. So as I have already told you that as of now, the government is largely regulating the nuclear energy sector. So therefore, the private companies will now be allowed into enter the civil nuclear power generation under a strict government oversight. However, operational participation will be opened up, but Department of Atomic Energy will retain control over the core strategic functions such as nuclear material production, heavy water management, and radioactive waste handling. So why government regulation? Nuclear energy generation is a very technical, it is capital intensive, and apart from that, in case of any accidents in these nuclear power plants, they may create a large scale disaster and destruction in that particular area. So keeping in mind all these problems, the government tightly regulates, controls nuclear energy sector. Now one thing that we should understand that in Bhopal 1984, there is a company has which used to manufacture pesticides, and the release of methyl isocyanate from that Union Carbide company has led to the death of several people and even the post-birth defects of several other people as well. So therefore, the reform aims to mobilize. So therefore, the nuclear energy, the civil nuclear generation also, it is largely controlled by the government because of the consequences in case of any such accidents. The reform aims to mobilize large-scale investment that a public sector alone cannot sustain. So let's understand the key legal and investment reforms. A central feature of this bill is the amendment of India's Civil Nuclear Liability Framework. So India's Civil Nuclear Liability Framework will be reformed. In fact, it seeks to shield plant operators, cap the liability of equipment suppliers, addressing the long-standing concerns that have deterred the private companies and the foreign investments into the India's nuclear power generation. And apart from that, the operator insurance cover is proposed to be redesigned at 1,500 crore per incident in case of any accident. So therefore, it will be capped at 1,500 crore per incident through the Indian Nuclear Insurance Pool. So this bill is going to allow up to 49% of foreign direct investment, and it is going to propose a unified legal framework for atomic energy, including a specialized nuclear tribunal will also be established. So therefore, in this context, let's understand the private sector in nuclear power. What are the benefits and what are the concerns with private sector in the nuclear power generation? So what are the benefits benefits of private sector in the involvement in the nuclear power generation? So in fact, if the private investment is allowed into the nuclear power generation, it will help bridge the financial gap needed for rapid nuclear power growth. Understand that we have the objective of generating 100 gigawatt of nuclear power by the year 2047. So if we allow the foreign direct investment of private sector participation in nuclear energy generation. The private sector will have the capital, they have the technology, and they also have the best managerial capacities. So with that, we may achieve this goal of achieving 100 gigawatt by 2047. So in fact, the other advantage with attracting private investments into the nuclear power generation is technology. They bring in technology and they also bring in better innovation, global expertise, better managerial capacities. So apart from that, the private companies into the nuclear power generation. So the competitive bidding and private participation will help reduce the project costs, and it will also reduce the project delays as well. If the nuclear power is completely controlled by the government, there is a chance that because of the government priorities, government may not be able to take up this nuclear power generation as a priority. So apart from that, energy security. So increased nuclear power generation, it helps reduce dependence on fossil fuels, and it will also help meet the clean energy needs of the country. So understand that the nuclear power generation, it generates a less emissions into the environment. We can say that this is a safer form of a fuel compared to the fossil fuels. If we dependent on the nuclear energy, then we may reduce our dependence on fossil fuels, and India's climate obligations can also be met. However, participation of private companies in nuclear power generation is not free from the challenges or concerns. So let's try and understand the concerns as well in this context. For example, amendments to existing laws require to enable private sector participation. You cannot simply pass an executive resolution and will allow the private sector participation. So therefore, there is a need for amendments to the existing laws to enable the private sector participation. So second most important concern that we should understand is the nuclear power projects have long gestation periods. So long gestation periods, higher upfront investments, which actually deters private investors, or it is a disincentive on the part of the private investors to come forward and invest in the nuclear energy. The liability concerns as well, because the private sector need to pay a higher liability cost in case of a nuclear disaster. So the Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act imposes higher liability on the operators, making the private investments risky. Then the safety and security issues also come in, because the nuclear energy or civil nuclear generation, it requires a strict safety protocols. Allowing private firms to operate reactors necessitates robust regulatory oversight. However, we should also take into account the public perception as well, because there are concerns over nuclear safety, waste management, and radiation risks will face the public resistance as well. Right? So these are the concerns which are associated with the participation of private sector in the nuclear energy generation space. However, so India planning a huge increase in the nuclear power. As I have already told you, we have the target of generating 100 gigawatt nuclear power by the year 2047. If you look at India's energy basket, nuclear power contributes to a minute amount of just 3.2% of India's total energy basket. So therefore, there is a need to substantially increase the nuclear energy generation capacity in India. Nuclear energy is also a form of a clean fuel. Therefore, we might reduce our dependence on the fossil fuels if we increase our generation to produce nuclear power. However, so you can also go through all different nuclear power plants in different states which are actually established all across India. Right? So the next important topic is about the collegium system in India. Chief Justice of India made important remarks regarding the collegium system in India. So he says collegium is far more open than it was before. So let's understand what exactly is a collegium system very briefly. Collegium system is a forum which don't have any statutory recognition, don't have any constitutional recognition. Collegium system is a mechanism under which the judges are appointed by the judges themselves. Even though in the Constituent Assembly, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar strictly against the judges appointing the judges. However, on the basis of independence of the judiciary has come up with this collegium system. So collegium system is a forum where the appointments and transfers of the higher judiciary will be decided by the judges themselves. This is also known as a process of judges appointing themselves. Now, in fact, the collegium system is born out of 3 judges case, which gave the primacy to the Chief Justice of India's call on appointments and transfers of judges. Now, this collegium system comprises of Chief Justice of India and 4 Supreme Court judges, which deals with appointment and transfer of judges within the Supreme Court of India. However, judiciaries gets a greater say than executive in the collegium system with respect to the appointment and transfers of judges. However, the president, who is part of the executive, merely approves the CJI's choice as part of the collegium system. However, the collegium system has been facing a lot of criticism. The collegium system has been criticized as a process of judges appointing the judges, lack of transparency, lack of accountability. The other branches of the government are not allowed in deciding, appointing, transferring the judges. So therefore, an administrative burden of checking professional background and data, closed door affair because it lacks transparency, and it is exclusively a domain of judiciary. Other branches of the government are not allowed, and in fact it may also sidelines the talented junior judges, advocates as well. And in fact, it is also criticized that the collegium system is also promoting nepotism in the higher judiciary as well. However, the government passed 99th Constitutional Amendment Act, and this 99th Constitutional Amendment Act has brought in National Judicial Appointments Commission. However, the Supreme Court in Advocates on Record case of 2014 has rejected this 99th Constitutional Amendment Act as unconstitutional. It says that NJAC violates the independence of the judiciary. However, there have been renewed calls for a new mechanism which dealt with the appointment of the judges. So the collegium system should be reformed. There should be representation to other branches of the government, and there needs to be transparency and accountability in the appointment of judges. So that's all for this for today, and thank you so much. If you have any suggestions, feel free to write those suggestions in the comment section. Please subscribe our YouTube channel and also like our video. Thank you so much.